Oh, we're ready.
After we have the pledge of allegiance.
Welcome, everybody. Thank you for attending tonight's special meeting of LA 32's Neighborhood Council. We're on item number 2 now. If everybody's standing, please join me in the pledge of allegiance.
Join me.
us.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Thank you.
Item number 3 is roll call. I'd like to ask Anthony to please do
There's a sign-in sheet going down the table, so please sign in. I'll start from the left. Michelle Persantes.
Here.
Hugo Pacheco. Myself, Anthony Manzano. Angelica Duarte.
Here.
Ruben Chavez.
Here.
Marlene Fonseca.
Here.
Troy Carvajal. Here. Cynthia Sandoval.
Here.
Victor Junayala. Here. That's a total of 9 members present. We do have quorum, and the start time is 6:40, which is 2 minutes ago, including the legislature.
6:40. The meeting's officially called to order. I don't know if that was ever done. At this point, I'm going to relinquish myself as the chair and ask Cynthia to please chair the rest of the meeting. I'll remain as the director until board discussion on item number 7, and then I'll have to leave.
Are we using this list here as the actual comments, board comments? Is that what this is for?
No, that's roll call. That's just roll call.
Because June is asking if you can make a comment as he gets to his name in regards to a meeting.
Yes, there was reason for that. And this is just regarding to Miles cleanup.
She's asking for orientation.
You're the
Anybody
chair,
know?
so you decide to take it, chair.
Well, it's not on our agenda.
Why don't we just do it during, when
Board
you get to that
comments.
item, we can do the motion, and then we can just open it for board discussion. And that way we can talk about it there, so let's just follow the agenda order.
So the next general, it's public comment now.
Public comment.
Anybody general public comment at this time? No public comment cards have been received?
None.
Okay, so we move on to item number 5. Approval of minutes from meeting of the general board that was held on February 3rd.
Okay, well, the item for the next.
Anthony, since you're recording secretary, are we recording the minutes? You said there's 2 parts?
I am taking the minutes for this evening, but at February 3rd,
Right.
actually, because I know they're having prepared this evening, there are 2 separate.
Okay, so we're going to table
We
it.
have to just put it together.
So we'll table it to our March meeting?
Postpone it until March.
Okay. On to item number 6, the filling of executive committee seat, vice president. We have board members that are present here. Anyone that is interested in filling the executive committee seat of vice president?
I'd like to nominate June.
Okay, I see 1 nomination in June
What was the request? I didn't hear.
to fill the committee seat of vice president.
Okay. I second the motion.
I'm going to start with Michelle. Michelle, do you have any nominations or self-nomination?
No.
No?
But I second the motion for June.
Hugo?
Yes, I like to nominate.
I see Angela being nominated as well. Anthony, do you have any nominations?
I don't have any nominations, but I do have a question on filling the vacancies
Okay.
or concern. The bylaws indicate that all, specifically it says all 21 directors are eligible for executive officer seats. I know there have been indications that we reduced our board structure size from 21 to 15, so it would be correct that the bylaws would read all 15 directors are eligible to hold officer seats. Since we do not have a full board, I don't think it's acceptable to fill the seats because what we're doing is excluding those potential directors that will be filled in any specific region where they are not included, meaning they are not eligible to run for the officer seat since their seat is vacant. So I would suggest that we do not clear that item according to the bylaw.
That's what we have to do.
Okay, Angela?
I
Thank you, Anthony.
disagree. I think right now, let's get the seat filled in so that we can move on, get to the election, and have at least a full board. So we don't put the president under a situation where she doesn't have anyone to help her support. So I suggest we move forward, get a vice president to relieve her anytime we have to have a second.
Okay, Angela, at this time, do you have anyone that you'd like to nominate?
I nominated you now.
Okay. The next person, Mr. Chavez, do you have anyone you'd like to nominate or self-nominate yourself?
But I have a comment in terms of the party secretary's comment. I agree that we need to fill this vacancy ASAP. In terms of what he said, I think it's very reasonable and very rational what he said. But here is where we need to tweak the bylaws, and that would be coming under Mr. Pacheco down the road to address this particular item. And also to address, like tonight is a special meeting, that anyone, put it in the bylaws, that anyone can chair a special meeting for the board, or a special, or a regular Wednesday board meeting, in the event that none of the 5 execs or 4 execs are not available for whatever the reason, they're not available, but we need to have because of money matters and other matters, we need to tweak it so anyone of the board present, we have a quorum, can run either meeting.
Okay, so what I'm hearing you say is you want to move forward with choosing a vice president?
Absolutely.
And do you have anyone you'd like to nominate?
Angela.
Okay. Arlene?
No.
Troy?
No. Shame on you.
And myself? We don't have anybody right now at this time. Okay, so it looks like out of all of our present directors, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. June, do you have anybody that you'd like to nominate or self-nominate yourself? Okay, so we have 5 directors, which is 4, right? 5, we can pass to move on this item.
I believe it's 8, but then we still have quorum.
No, I'm saying to move on this item to fill the seat.
Yeah, we have quorum, however you look at it.
Okay, so there's 5 of us that are in agreement.
Oh, is that what we're voting on?
We're voting
I
on
thought we
it.
were discussing it, giving our opinion.
You have to have a public comment and then,
I'm a little
It's not a
confused.
motion.
No, we
Okay, but it's not a motion. All you gotta do is nominate somebody and then vote as a board. But I think what you're asking is what's the majority for the person to win?
Right, it's 5, right?
How many of us are there? 9?
There's 5. So it's 5.
one more thing that you need to add.
We have to ask them to speak for a minute or so,
Right.
right?
We need to accept the nomination.
Right, well, first they have to accept and then speak for at least a minute.
They have accepted.
No, they have not. I have not heard them accept. I've only heard them be nominated.
Okay.
So I'm going to go with June, since he was the first nominated. June, can you take 1 minute to explain or tell us why you would
Well, first I will
fill this
accept,
nomination?
I will accept the nomination that was submitted by Angela, and other board members. And I've been on this board long enough to know the rules and regulations and what's to be done, what's not to be done. And, I think I can do a good job on the vice president role, so I will accept that nomination.
Thank you, June. Our next nominee was Angela. Angela, can you take a minute?
I'm going to respectfully decline. Oh, you're not.
Okay, so I hear that Angela is declining the nomination and June is accepting. Do we have any public comment on the nominations of the vice presidency? No public comment at this time? So now we're at the place where we vote.
Board comment.
Board comment? We just made our comment.
It's not a motion.
It's not a motion.
All right, move forward.
Exactly. So, in regards to the seat of vice president to be filled, we have a nominee of June Ayala. Michelle, we have to put this as, you have to record it, Anthony?
Take notes.
Okay. So Michelle?
Yes. Oh, you asking me?
Yes. for June Ayala?
Yes.
Thank you. Hugo Pacheco?
Yes.
Thank you. Anthony Manzano?
I abstain.
Okay. Angela?
Yes.
Mr. Chavez?
Yes.
Marlene?
Yes.
Troy?
Yes.
Cynthia? I abstain.
Point of information that on executive committee votes, the stakeholders are allowed to vote for executive board members.
Yes. Okay, I'm sorry, I don't know your name, but I'd like to recognize you at this meeting. Victor? Okay, Victor, would you also like to vote for the vice president? This is June Ayala? Your vote is yes? Thank you. And Mr. Scott Johnson?
I vote for Janayala vice president.
Very well. And Mr. June Ayala, Scott Johnson is a yes. So can you give us the tally?
Quite well, so the last time I had was Marlene, and I didn't get one from.
Troy?
From Cynthia.
No, Troy, yes.
Okay.
I abstained. June abstained. Mr. Victor in the audience is a yes, and Mr. Johnson is a yes.
6 or 6 said yes and 2 abstained.
Total 8 in favor.
Okay, you said yes. Oh, you're counting the stakeholders.
Yes,
You are correct.
for an executive position.
Just 2 stakeholders.
And then there was 3 abstentions.
Okay,
No opposition, so it'll be 8-0-3.
okay, so that's our total. So congratulations, June.
Madam Chair, I have a question. Since he's now the vice president, will he now be in charge of the next item?
I believe so. So you are not going to conduct the next item, which is, I will relinquish the seat to June Ayala, since he's now been nominated. as
What
vice
number are we on now?
president. We are on number 7, discussion.
I would just like to put something on the record, that the advice was that it should be somebody impartial regardless of whether they're an executive committee seat or not, and that's why I chose who I chose. I'm not gonna stop it, I mean, you're the chair and you're gonna decision, but I wanna get it on record, because that advice was given to everyone last time, I'm giving it again. And Victor made a statement one time on camera that indicates that he's not impartial in this matter. That's it, for the record.
I'd like to make a motion. Can I make a motion?
No, there's no motions.
No,
No motions are allowed?
no, we're moving on to item 7, and I am relinquishing the chair to June Ayala. June Ayala, your duty is to remain impartial.
Point of interest, I have a point of interest clarification. Since the statement was made by the person that this meeting especially about, not siding with the person that this meeting is about, but because of the statement was made by that person, I think that it's only fair for Mr. Ayala to recuse himself, because it is in his mind in the past statement, and he is allowed to think the way he wants to think. And he is not going to be an impartial person in this setting, so I respectfully ask Mr. Ayala to recuse himself because of statements made in the past.
Well, he
This is
doesn't
not
need to
siding
recuse
with the
himself.
president.
He's not going to recuse himself from the room, but if he
Yeah,
step
right,
down
recuse
from
himself
that.
from being chairing the event.
Isn't that why we filled in the president today to take on
The
this?
vice
Yes,
president-
but
Is
he
that why
had made a
you
negative.
Is that why you guys felt it?
Well, we needed the office filled before we cannot allow.
That's not why you felt it, and
Can I make a comment?
Yes.
My position is, I think June has shown me more than these past few meetings in regards to the situation. So unless he feels any conflict of interest, I'm hoping he will, if I was to do it.
Okay, I have a comment from Mr. Johnson.
Yes, regarding item number 7, tonight if you walked about as a John Doe stakeholder, 7, and this is the only information regarding an issue, paramount importance to censure. I'd be really leery of, in terms of impartiality, in terms of objectivity, of being wanting to be part of a situation like this, because both parties, both sides should be accorded due process and objectivity. As a stakeholder, somebody coming in tonight and only having this, or any background documentation on what is about to happen or may happen, will be ill-served in having all the information needed to entertain a thought on what could transpire here. Having seen what happened in Boyle Heights, it's very paramount that this board, before they go forward with any type of motion that affects the reputation of any board member, have ample documentation on hand for any stakeholder who walks into these proceedings, so that way the stakeholders could vet what is the documentation basis for this situation. I would sincerely ask this body, based upon what's available here tonight, to not move forward with this in the interest of fairness to the party involved. Because this is not a type of situation when you're going forward with somebody's reputation and on a Friday evening, this is not the type of environment you good.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. Well, I see that the person that is being named in this item is here prepared and ready to put her presentation. I think she has had ample time since December to do, as we see here for this meeting, which is the only item that is going to be discussed.
Are you chair? Or is it June?
June has not accepted the chair yet because of the comment that Mr. Chavez made.
So you're ready? That's his prerogative.
With all due respect, with the comments that were made, just so that we can go forward with this, that they won't come up to us later on and be an issue with my past remarks. I think it's best that Cynthia continue with this item, just so that later on, if there's any kind of footage that shows that they made a comment in the past, that it won't have to, we have to do this all over again. So I would like to respectfully have Cynthia go ahead and continue item number 7, just so that it won't come back this afternoon.
That's true leadership.
Yes,
There was a comment made by the person that is supposed to be censured about fairness and non-bias. At the last meeting, I stated that I wanted to have the city attorney here because of the fact that in the memo that was sent to us, the city attorney said there might be some personal liability on our part if we carried out the censorship in a manner in which they would not consider to be valid. Also, I stated that I did not like the comment made by the censuree, I guess I don't know what you call the person that's getting censured, saying that there might be a misdemeanor. And their clarification as to whether the misdemeanor was going to be against us or against the person being censured. I did not come to this body to get a ticket. That's what it comes down to. I don't know who, I don't see any law enforcement in here to give me a ticket, but I have no idea why a misdemeanor was even mentioned at the last meeting. So, in all fairness, and also because of the fact that we don't have a legal liaison that's unbiased, the city attorney has said that the person being censured is the one who's collecting information to be submitted to the city attorney. That's not fairness. That's not unbiased. The person who's the one collecting the information, how do I know that that person is actually submitting all the information that's being turned in? So therefore, on that basis, and the fact that I want no lawsuits, I don't want to get started on ethics violations, I am leaving this meeting. I am here to make sure that we've got a vice president, and I'm hoping that the vice president can eventually become the legal liaison. If not, someone who's unbiased is the legal liaison. And until that happens, I'm not a party to this. Thank you.
note that Mr. Pacheco is in the room.
No forum, no. We have forum?
But I have a comment. Angela, I agree with you. Only on the sense of the notes that we have, there will be compared to everyone who is using it. But if we don't ask, and then if you mention this other ordinance, they didn't send a question, because they were comfortable, whatever it is, or by sending it out. But if that is the case, I would probably find it best, unless she wants to present, the applications are.
I will do my presentation, that's what this meeting was called for. Everybody had the opportunity to submit their questions to me. The very next day after that next meeting, I started to ask for the questions to come. I didn't receive any until yesterday from you. One day prior to the meeting, I was still able to get the answers. The question about the misdemeanor was answered and documentation was provided. So I think that this was the whole reason for the meeting. We had every opportunity to send me questions. I don't filter your emails, I just forward them, and then I forward you guys the entire chain. You see exactly what I sent to the city attorney. There's no filter. And you can verify, you're the only one who submitted questions. Your questions were not altered in any way. So for him to even claim any sort of unfairness or biasness is, it's not a legitimate reason, I don't believe.
There's a couple of things that I have concern. We got an email saying that special meeting short notice from the commissioner, and then the department, the board members, and now that we have a vice president, we can send a lot of questions to that person that nobody can feel comfortable. I know it's hard because it's already been on the agenda for so many months, but it's probably best if we just table it or have another meeting later on. Go through the motion, send the vice president the question that we need to do, that you can talk forward to the attorney and act like the legal liaison for now to the board, and then come back. I gotta read something really quick. So I did receive the response back on one of my questions by the city attorney, and his comment was, individuals concerned with their personal liability should seek and obtain the advice of private legal counsel. The questions you asked regarding individual liability should be similarly explored with your own private legal counsel. This is pertaining to my question in regards to any course of action or misdemeanors towards us as individuals. And I asked Tom soon, our representative from that, if the city attorney can be here, because then we would have to be able to get and we have to be able to have the attorney here. And I was told they really not to please is not public. And so
I'd like to clarify something, I'm sorry. That answer actually wasn't to one of your questions, it was to one of my questions. And my question to him was, because nobody else asked the questions, and so I started wondering what questions might you want answered, was personal liability for each of you. The misdemeanor charge could be brought against me, a Brown Act violation can result in a misdemeanor charge. It's unlikely, and again, we don't know exactly which section of the Brown Act he's citing as me violating, so we don't know if what he's citing carries a misdemeanor charge or not. That's just a potential, and that's all I said, and again, documentation was provided on that. The personal liability, if you all watch the training that I did email you about, personal liability comes when you're slandering somebody or you're committing a libel act against somebody, which might mean like, you're gonna vote to censor me, you're gonna forward it, but there's really not evidence. Perhaps it's an act of retaliation, perhaps it's discrimination, maybe you don't like, I don't know, women, something like that. Something to that effect that would make you all personally liable and or civilly liable on my part if I sustain damages, in which I already have thanks to some articles that have already been printed as a result and directly stated that it was as a result of this petition. So that's where the personal liability comes into. But if you're all voting in a fair manner, based on evidence and based on facts, then there's no reason to be worried about being personally liable.
the problem is that according to the email from the petitioner, it was who was going to respond to him. He wanted to know who was sending the information to. And nobody here, I wasn't helping because I didn't know who was going to be delegated. No one responded to him, and we don't know what is the charges, what are the details.
He doesn't know. The city attorney doesn't know what the charges
No,
are.
not the city attorney. I'm talking about the
Oh, he did respond to that. He said if it's not in the bylaws. The petitioner, I know, you asked if he needed legally or whatever, if he was required to be notified or if posting the agenda was sufficient. The city attorney's response was, what's in the bylaws? And again, up to the board, what's in the bylaws. My comment on that though is, I don't like to make allegations that come out of nowhere. I don't like to accuse anybody of anything. I find it highly unlikely that he didn't know. I also know that at the last meeting, it was first on the agenda, and he also wasn't present at that meeting. So for the statement that he anticipated that it would be in March almost makes me wonder if it was pre-planned to table it, because he wasn't there in February. He anticipated it being in March. It almost makes me wonder if maybe some sort of serial meeting or some sort of consensus of quorum or a number of board members took place. But I do find it highly unlikely that if he wasn't at the February meeting, how did he know it wasn't heard? He had to have been told it wasn't heard. I would find it unlikely if within that conversation he also wasn't told that there would be a special meeting in which it would be heard prior to the March, unless he would. I don't see why he would be told it would be heard at the March General Board meeting when the motion came out from here, that it would be tabled for a special meeting.
It puts us in a very bad situation. My position is I feel bad for the president because she has to go through this every single time. But I'm just not comfortable making a decision without knowing exactly what the facts are and without having any clarification or having any legal representation, knowing if we're doing the right thing. I'm not an attorney. I don't think any of us here on the board are attorneys. And I don't want to put or jeopardize anyone, any of the board members, myself, or the board chair in a situation where there is any repercussions.
There already is on my part, and so I deserve the opportunity to present my findings or my facts.
You want to present them your information, and then we could, so here, I have a suggestion. Why don't, if you're okay with it, Marlene, let's hear your presentation. And then if the board is comfortable with the table, the petitioner presentation for the next board meeting, give him 15 minutes to do the presentation, and then we've already heard her side, so we have enough time to process it and then make a decision at the next meeting. Mr. Charles?
I agree with Hugo Pacheco in terms of because of the liability to all of us. As the person involved on item number 7, which is the president of the LA 2NC, the attorneys aren't going to come. And if Dunn comes, obviously Dunn knows that this was taking place, and it's their prerogative to come or not. Okay? But Dunn is not impartial whatsoever. They are partial to Dunn and the liability to protect them, and attorneys will protect Dunn. And attorneys will not necessarily protect us depending on what the issue is, but they will protect Dunn, and Dunn has no beef here, okay? So they don't have to come. If they come, they're not impartial. They can just give us opinions from Dunn regarding our bylaws and Dunn. Dunn supersedes our bylaws anytime. And also, we have a recording there, and it's been established for quite some time now, since we bought that camera, that everything's been published on Facebook and whatever else, and on our website and whatever else, and it's available to the public that normally uses those venues to inform themselves. The public at large is never going to see that camera, but Dunn will. We'll see what's on there when it's posted, and so will the legal, the 2 attorneys that represent the 95 NCs in the city of Los Angeles. They will see what's being said here today by all of us, and I feel that this should be moved forward today, as Angela's had a lot of valuable points there that are very valid. We need to see both sides. We're here today, we have quorum. Let's allow the person involved on item number 7, which is the president of LA 32NC, if she wishes to go forward with her part of it, which is something that Angela was alluding to, and I find it very reasonable. If the person involved here wishes to move forward on this, and I'm for moving it forward And whether it's tabled or not, the board will decide by our comments and public comment what we should do, and at the end, we'll decide what to do with the meeting.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chavez. Troy, do you have anything to add to that?
This has been on the agenda since December. We have prolonged this far too long. We called a special meeting specifically for 3 items, but one of them is this one, that somebody wants, or some people want people again. I don't agree with that at all. We called a special meeting for something, we've got to get it done right now. This is getting a little bit,
Dragging it on.
it's a little bit, I don't have a proper word to say it, but it is dragging on, thank you. We've been far too long. I say we get this done, get it over with, do the best we can for what we have going right now. So my humble opinion is to move on forward with this and not to table anything anymore. We're here, it's a special meeting called for this. Let's step up and get it done. That's all I have to say.
Thank you. June?
Yeah, this has been dragging on for quite some time now. But I do have some concerns. We are not getting any help done. By not understanding what the process is. But anyone who's going to try to prove themselves, there has to be someone to actually, you can prove yourself, let the other person prove his also. I'm not too sure if there's a role where someone from the board was supposed to contact the person and let him know, hey, look, we're going to have a special meeting, bring your evidence up forth. So even though we got today, he's claiming that no one notified him. We've already found out. That's one of my questions is, was someone supposed to notify him? The bylaw doesn't say anything, but why didn't the department tell us, hey, you're supposed to notify him, notify him to bring his evidence up front? But I do agree. I agree that this has been dragging on way too long. We need to take care of this. But I can't make a decision on something unless I hear both parties. So I'm all for moving on, but I won't be able to make a decision unless I see his evidence proving his facts. I mean, she's here to prove what she has, and that's fine. I'm all for it. But what about the person that's submitting the petition? He should have a right to be here to submit his evidence to us so that we can make a decision, a positive decision, a correct decision. Was he correct? Was he not correct? So I agree, it has to be, we need to move on. We only have a couple more months, let's just move on. But I really think that we need to hear both sides. And that's all I have to say.
I have a comment.
Yolanda? You have a comment?
Yes, I do have a comment. I walked here among this already addressing the item. From what I've heard, I would have to say that, this item has been on the agenda for a long time. It has been writing. That's one of the topics that I was thinking before that it was mentioned, but it is writing. And I think it needs to be, we need to take a stand on that item. That the petitioner is not here, it's unfortunate. However, I do think that we need to, something needs to come up today. I think it would be unfair just to have Marlene present her, whatever evidence she has. I think either we hear both items or I think we dismiss and move on because it's just to me that the petitioner was there at previous meetings, yet the petitioner wasn't there at the last one, and today is not here today. What guarantees do we have that he will be back at the March meeting? I don't know, maybe the petitioner ever got over this and this no longer wants to, I don't know, but to me, this would be, we need to do something today.
Mr. Chavez?
Okay, what I'm going to say is going to please some people here, not please some. I'm not going to say, I'm going to be unbiased on what I'm going to say. we're dancing around the issue that the person, the plaintiff, I guess that's what it's called, making the complaint? Plaintiff, petitioner, has not been here or there. We're dancing around as to who should have told them, because it's a male, who should have told them, who should have done, and that this is the last minute and that. If this has been dragging a lot, can you imagine on both the person that's doing this and the person having to defend themselves, the psychological trauma that they're living in their personal life because of all of this. Him not being notified, this one because it's on her. And here's the crux of the whole thing. We all know that it is our beloved, treasured husband. Why dance around it?
You don't know that for sure. You don't know if we're divorced or separate.
Okay, we know that you live, that's legitimate what you said. I respect that, but we know that there's a very close relationship between you and that gentleman. Okay? However it is, and it's none of our business, your relationship is true. Okay? But we know that for a fact.
His name Joshua, not as mine.
Okay, Joshua, I apologize.
Mr. Chavez, can you come to the point?
I am, but you need to allow me my space. I have the First Amendment right to
But
say
you're
what I
not
want
allowed
to
to
say.
talk to the other board member.
You allow her to say it as long as she wanted
But
to.
don't you speak to the other board member, make your point.
Well, I am making my point, but you gotta let me do it how I wanna make it,
Yes.
not like you want me to make it. Okay? So, if like I said, I was gonna say things that some people wasn't gonna like, and some people were. I qualified my point before I started. Okay, and unfortunately, she reacted, and I apologized to her. Because it's none of my business what her relationship is to that gentleman. I happen to like that guy, okay? But it's still none of my business, their relationship, or anybody else's. But we know that there is a close relationship between them. Whatever it is, who cares? But it is a close. And because of that, and I'm saying not to be prejudiced against her or him, but because of that relationship, it has to be a point that sounds reasonable and rational to me, as long as I could be, what I'm going to say, that he knew that this was going to happen. Maybe because of his, whatever he's doing, he didn't have time to come, which is reasonable on his part and their part. He wasn't going to be able to come tonight or the other times it was not. Maybe it was all right. It couldn't have. Stuff happens. Okay, and I'm willing to accept that, but we need to move forward and stop dancing around that he probably did not know and did not have, because he's the one that filed the complaint. So he has his stuff already prepared and everything. Now, if he couldn't come, I believe he should have sent a message to our creditor, because they have some kind of a relationship that we can call close. Whatever it is none of our business, but that does exist. Okay, and he could have been notified through that source what today is and all of the crux of everything, and that's why I feel that we need to move forward and stop dancing around who should have told him, he didn't know, and all that baloney. Thank you.
Okay, this is the last time I'm going to go with Anthony Manzano and then with Angela.
Thank you. First of all, I want to say that I'm going to speak directly to the item on the agenda, because some board members have a lot of questions and concerns. I think the current vice president is accurate, and I put a lot of blame to the Department of Neighborhood Department and to the city attorney's office. The reason is they are not leading us, guiding us, assisting us, and showing us the process that we are to follow. We have tons of questions, and the fault falls on the city. And guess what they're saying is, we don't want to have any fault. It's your fault. It's your liability. You're in trouble. It's your responsibility. Well, the answer is, that's their job. They are obligated and compelled to direct us, lead us, and show us the process. All we're doing is say, we don't know the process. And what's happening is they are pointing back on us and say, well, you can do what you want. We won't be there. We don't attend those type of meetings. When it comes to the March meeting, they're not going to want to hear this issue. But it's their duty as the Department of Neighborhood Empowerment to assist and guide with the censure process. Whatever it may be, whether we're in favor for it or opposed to it, they're supposed to guide us. And we are not getting that. We're not getting it from no level of the department and no level from the city attorney's office, which is their fault. And if they want to watch the video, it's their fault. So what I would ask ask is that we will table this item. If you want, I'll stand here and have a motion. We are not allowed to exclude the stakeholders. Just because there's not someone standing before us doesn't mean we cannot hear the item. Now, it may be unfair, but it could be any other item. They could be coming to ask for money. They could be concerned about land use issues. But what we do is we always wait till there's someone available. So that's what we should do again. It's been the same practice. We've done it for over 10 years, and we want people to be present. Even if they're asking for money for the bicentennial parade, we always want someone there. So if they're not here, we are not allowed to punish them. It's still on the agenda, and we still hear it later. That's the way the process is. Now, if it comes that it gets so late down the line that our term is over, and there is no one to bring these items forward, the president doesn't have to defend herself, and then it becomes pretty much moot. Yes, nullified, but that would be to the end of the term. Right now, this is something that's on our agenda, and it's up to us to decide, do we hear the item or no? The board has already indicated that they don't have enough evidence. I feel the same way. That's why it's best that we table it, because we cannot exclude the stakeholders. That's what it's called, stakeholder initiative. They started this. We have to listen to them. Thank you.
That's just an opinion.
Angela?
Just an opinion.
Okay, it's a very tense situation. We have two people, and I just want to clarify something. We always point at Michelle because it's her husband and it is, and I can see constantly how much it bothers her. So, and I know it bothers you also because you're in this situation. It's uncomfortable for all of us, I think. But with all fairness, I'm uncomfortable with Josina's side. Now, if the chair wants to present her piece, I would say that let's hear it, and then hear at the next meeting the petitioner, the stakeholder petitioner, and then have a fair process, and we can decide at that time. It's actually even better for the sake of time at our next meeting. But if you don't want to do it today, then I would suggest that you're going to get some guidance. I thought it's a really uncomfortable situation. I feel really glad that I just dislike constantly hearing that they're pointing at Michelle because of her husband. And she's our board member too, just like the chair is. So let's stop doing that, please. Her husband does not go vote at the same time with her. They have different votes. That's just my comment.
Have a comment?
Okay, we've already went twice.
Wait a minute, that's
We've
my
already-
first,
no,
no, I have a First Amendment, I'm sorry, I have a right to.
Mr. Chavez, it was not her third time to speak on this item. It was her
I'm
third time to
speaking on
speak.
this item, I have a right to.
You spoke twice already, and we only vote twice.
But it can go around as many
No.
until the issue's redeemed, okay?
That's not one side, you guys speak.
You may speak again.
So, this is an item that was posted, so I don't see that we are not including stakeholders, that the stakeholders chose not to be here, it's their choice. I don't think we're excluding the stakeholders by having this meeting and tabling this item, or taking action on this item. I would like to make a motion to dismiss the petition.
I second it. Now we got a public comment, discuss it. Got a motion.
Okay, public comment?
Public comments.
Okay.
Thank you.
Again, you are embarking on a process which has no definitive boundaries, no definitive protocols, no structure. A petition has been submitted, but where is the structure? I've heard discussion that, well, let's let her have her presentation, but yet, if I'm on the other side, I get to watch the video and present my counter argument. That's not fair to her.
Exactly.
You have not set up a structure, objective protocol how this is going to be processed. I would like to see a judge, board member, and maybe a couple stakeholders that the community recognizes that can be a partial on this, to be an ad hoc hearing committee, to set the ground rules. 10 minutes for one side, 10 minutes for the other, then you have a vote, and you put that in writing to both sides, and you go to the next meeting, and then you put it with the caveat that this will be the last time this item will come before the board. Failure shall forfeit your right to move forward. Plain and simple.
Did you hear the motion?
established, everybody's been told the process. The city attorney did send an email prior to the last general board meeting explaining the process. The board will hear the merits of the allegation. They'll also decide on whether or not the petition meets the satisfactory requirements of, if the board decides that it meets the requirements to satisfy the board that it's a petition or that it should move forward. And then you hear the merits of the allegation. That's been established. It's up to the board. You guys are a board. And you're put in place to make decisions, not to just rely on somebody else to tell you what to do. He's told you what to do. It's time for the board to step up here and make an intelligent and a fair decision, table the penalty, put it forward to the city attorney, and let him review it and make sure that everything's in line so that nobody's liable. That was it. Simple. That's what he said. I don't mean, I'm going to say it, and I'm sorry, but I find that the board at this time, and I'm speaking in general, so for those of you that it doesn't apply to, I apologize, but I find that the board and a number of people are frankly acting cowardly in this. You're a board for a reason. You're being given the power to take the action, but yet you just want to relinquish it and pass it off and blame others. I don't want to hear it now. I didn't hear Hugo having any problem when he signed the petition. Sorry, I'm not disrespecting Hugo. The same with you, Anthony. The allegations have already been put out there. You were comfortable enough signing it, and now you don't want to hear it. The same with him. He was comfortable enough signing it so that it could move forward, so that it could be written about. But now you don't want to actually hear the merits of it.
If I was over there, I would be processing this tonight. We don't have to have Joshua. It could be any one of the states.
Well, apparently 61 people have been coming to show their evidence, is what was said. Word for word last time, 61 stake members have been coming to provide their evidence to show. There hasn't been 61 people here since the December meeting. I don't know that any one of these people have ever been here who signed the petition. But we have two here now, so I mean, let's hear why you signed it. All I'm getting at is that the power has been given to the board. The board gets a lot of power. That's why you're a board. That's why you're elected to make decisions up here. The power to make this decision has been put on you, and you've been given the guidelines. So please stop saying you haven't been given the guidelines, because you haven't. The guidelines are, you decide, and you move it forward. You're a board.
Go ahead.
Okay.
Go ahead.
I'm gonna,
Go ahead.
Marlene, should I just stop the discussion and move
It's
forward? This is to dismiss it. The
well,
motion
we're
is
discussing the dismissal. Exactly.
Oh, I didn't know there was a motion on the floor. I would ask that you don't dismiss it without allowing me the proper opportunity to provide my rebuttal, especially based on the fact that it's been written about. And I'd like to also add on the record that, I don't know how to word this, inaccurately written about, including it was an inaccurate article, 2 inaccurate articles that were printed because of this. So I ask that you don't dismiss it without allowing me the opportunity to provide that to the community, since the article did read that the community wants this.
So again, this is another comfortable situation, but Johnson, and Scott had a really good point, and I know you want to give your argument to it, but then we don't have the other side as part of it. I don't agree with dismissing it, that's just it. I'm not dismissing it, it was a stakeholder petition, regardless who signed it, it's there, we have to hear it. And I agree on giving both sides an opportunity to hear both sides. And I agree with what Mr. Johnson said, it's pretty fair, because you're right, and I forgot this, if she does say it is on video, so then it will be able to counter, so it's really such
I did think of that, and he's right. And he will have more of an opportunity to break apart everything I said and provide evidence to refute it. If I'm willing to take that risk, then allow me to take that risk.
Do you want to take that?
I'm not sure.
June?
Madam Chair, just a point of clarification, we close at 8 o'clock, it's 7:30 now. Whatever decision that we're going to do, we need to make it now, because they said that they close at 8 o'clock exactly, and we still got a team out there. So I'm just throwing that out there. Whatever decision the board goes, it has to do with that.
Do you have a comment on the dismissal?
So to right now, can we vote on whether we're going to dismiss it? Oh, sorry.
Mr. Chavez?
We're going to have to vote on it, like it or not. Okay. The other side, from the chair that is thinking, and of course she feels she'd like to have her say today, to say, to clarify her point of view. But I think if we table this any further, and she does state her stuff here, that allows that, because that's gonna be publicized. That will allow that other side to build a counter of whatever is published. Which, if he was here, because it's a gentleman, if he was here, he would have to, based on whatever paperwork or whatever allegations he has pertaining this issue, it will be right here, cold turkey on both sides. But if she allows, like she wants to allow to say it, then that person has a very good opportunity to build a stronger defense against it, and that is more lopsided. So if we terminate this tonight, and as Mr. Johnson said, the structure and all that, I agree with him 100%, and also Angela. But if we end it tonight, guess what? The gentleman feels so strongly about his point, and I respect it, and I think he should be heard. He can file this all over again, and we can start from that. And so that's why I asked the president here, which she has turned over her presidency over to the other executive officer this year, which is Cynthia. I sincerely would ask to allow, and if you vote, if you don't abstain, if you vote, I hope that you vote to dismiss it, to squash it, and end it tonight, because that beautiful man, and I like him, I think the world of him, okay? But that allows him, again, to go get his 50 persons, and refile this all over again, and then hopefully we can adhere to Angela's and Mr. Johnson's way of thinking and structure it, because then Hugo will be present, and maybe he can add something to all of this in terms of how we should proceed. But I hope that the board tonight votes to squash it, to end it, because that's what the motion is, to end it and nothing else, whether she's right or wrong, or he's right or wrong. It ends it, and he has the opportunity to refile this again.
I'd like to add a point of clarification, and also just to put on the record that this motion was not made by this board. This motion was made by the community, quote unquote. So you can't dismiss it. It has to be heard. Unless you're going to get all 61 of these people on this list to come in here and say, yeah, dismiss our motion, withdraw my name from that petition.
Okay.
You didn't make the motion.
But didn't we hear it? It's not that the motion is to have.
No, I mean, we haven't, right, but you haven't heard it yet. You haven't heard the item yet.
We haven't even read the
About the
motion.
point.
To hear it would be to hear exactly what we're saying. I don't want to call it arguments, but that's what you call it when I.
So we,
Presentations of both sides, and then you decide what to do with the motion. You don't, I mean, you have that ability because you're the board. You decide what to do. You decide whether it has the credibility to move forward in process.
okay, so every
If you don't, then you dismiss it, but you don't just dismiss it. We don't want to hear it. That would be like, I'm sorry, Ruben. That would be like if when the Beacon submitted the initiative, we voted to dismiss it before hearing it. Now we don't want to hear it, let's dismiss it. You can't do that.
So I retract my second, yet to retract your motion, because there is really no motion. So because of the lack of time now to hear it, we don't have time to hear it because we don't know how extensive your preparation is for your side. We're forced again to drag this thing on because we don't have the time. And by the next time it comes up, hopefully that beautiful man can come here with whatever he has prepared to make his presentation. And we also as a board, according to Mr. Johnson, we could have some kind of structure here for that process. As much as we don't like to go again, we don't have a choice because this place is closing down. We don't have a choice.
Well, I think on the agenda, the structure was set, 10 minutes each to present.
Yeah.
I don't think, the structure is there.
Well, okay, that's what Mr. Johnson was alluding to, something on that order.
So Mr. Chavez pulled the second the motion dies, right?
That's
Yeah.
correct.
So now we're back.
Back to the original motion.
There is no
I'm
motion.
sorry, the original item, which is
Number 7.
item number 7.
So no one's made a motion.
Now, because of the lack of time, what now? If we can't hear it as much as she wants to do.
No, I'm sorry, but I don't remember us saying we're not going to hear it. I know you're suggesting that we don't hear it, but the structure is here. 10 minutes. We have 10 minutes.
Okay. Fine. You're the chair. I respect that.
Then it's up to if you want to present it.
I don't think it's fair for her to present if the other
sure it's had plenty of time to know to be here.
What was the point? That if you present now and there's not another party to present, or any of those 61 stakeholders, then whatever's on video.
Yeah, I actually would prefer to present it right now. The only concern I have is that if he does come next time and then he's allowed to present and say he brings, they call 20 of their personal friends to come out there, and at that point then he's the only one showing his presentation, those 20 people or whoever haven't seen the video from this time, so they're only going based off of one side as well. Will I be able to represent, or, I mean, what would the point be of that? I have no problem presenting now. I feel like everything I'm going to point out, if he brings forward and he has time to collect it, good for him, kudos. I'm not worried about what he might be able to defend himself with.
Let me hear from Michelle, since Michelle hasn't spoken.
Is there any way we can assure that whoever, maybe not the century, but someone else, to reach and assure the one that did the petition, if we do decide on going from March 2nd, and we as a board know that it's fair, hey, look, here's the email, he was emailed to him, and if he didn't show up, you know, the board, whoever, whether it's you or June, I don't know, June, he got emailed, and he was told. So see, now it's like he got emailed, he was told. We have something more structured, he got emailed, he was told. And the board can sit there and say, he got emailed, he was told. And Marlene's ready, let's go, let's do this, Marlene. You know, as to, it goes back to did he get emailed or not, but we did get an email from him.
Okay,
Go ahead, Angela.
thank you. Because I know it's an uncomfortable situation, Michelle, because it's your husband and you're constantly being pointed at because it's your husband. And thank you, because that's actually a really fair thing. If we send him an email by the vice president and he doesn't show up to the March meeting, then at least we start to do due diligence. Either you can present now, I would suggest if she wants to present now, and then when he does his presentation, if he shows up, if he doesn't show up, then the board can at least agree, we inform him. If he does show up, then she should have the right to rebuttal it at that time. So I think if you want to do the opportunity now, being that it's going to be recorded, or if you want to wait and then rebuttal it at that time.
I would wait, I'm sorry, but I would wait. So
I'm not asking for anybody's opinion, respectfully, but I have a question then. Are you saying that if he doesn't, you're going to email him, if he doesn't show up next meeting, and again, I'd like to state for the record that he wasn't at the February meeting either, and he was first on the agenda, so he should have expected that it was going to be heard that day. If he doesn't show up, are you saying that it's automatically dismissed, or do I still have my opportunity to state my case?
Can I say something?
Angela?
I think because she's going to give the opportunity to hear it, I think we've done our job. Right now, I don't feel comfortable because nobody's emailed him back. He asked and he says, who do I send it to? We didn't have the right structure. We didn't have a vice president. We didn't have a legal liaison. We're getting all these mixed messages from them. Whatever the case is, I think if we send him a formal email and he does not show up, we hear your case and then the board can decide. Because if he doesn't show up, we can't hear the side. Now, if the petitioner or somebody else shows up and signs that form, then it's a whole other case. We hear it. But I think if you hear it and then the board can decide on things like that.
I like both of those ladies' opinion 100%. I think it really addresses our needs, and it also adheres to Mr. Johnson, which I agree 100% with what he has to say on this. Unfortunately, it doesn't go with the president. I don't blame him. He's entitled to her point of view on this. It's her that's at stake here, not any of us. So, but I think that what the treasurer and Angela had said, I agree with that wholeheartedly. He should have been here because he was notified the last time, and since he wasn't, that should have been squashed all of this. We shouldn't even be here today on this item number 7. It should have been taken care of then, because he knew then that was going to take place, and today was going to take place then. And because he wasn't there, now what? We're slapped with most uncomfortable and ugly situation. Before this administration, the last administration was fighting, and we were in so much trouble because of our finances and the horrific situation we were in because of the inability of the treasurer. Now we're with this of the president. I mean, come on, let's get doing things for the community. Get over this.
Thank you, Mr. Chavez. So the question now is back to the rebuttal after the stakeholder comes to present. Will there be a second opportunity for Marlene to have a rebuttal to his presentation?
She's going to be doing her presentation today. She should have the right to rebut.
What time is it right now?
It's 7:40.
I won't do it today.
Okay, that's the problem, we have a clock.
It's up to her. Because of the situation, I think it's up to her to decide if she wants to do the presentation today.
She doesn't have enough time for that.
It's 10 minutes. Or
Not
if she wants
enough.
to wait. And if, again, I think we've done our job. If we email the petitioner and he doesn't show up and nobody else shows up, the board hears one side and then we just base on that one side, or we dismiss.
Well, we have the other side already, the complaint. We have the complaint.
Okay, so for the sake of time, I'm gonna ask Marlene to make that decision. What does she want to do? Does she want to present today? And I suggest the board to give her the opportunity to rebuttal it if there is, if it's challenged.
If somebody else comes from the legal department and says that you can't rebuttal, then it's gonna be lopsided if you make a presentation now.
Mr. Chavez, this is the only reason why we can't get through a meeting, okay? We need to limit our conversations. We always doing this, every meeting. Please.
Life in the big city.
Okay, I agree with you.
Okay, so as the chair, I'd like to stop the conversation, that we're going to talk to Marlene now, and ask Marlene what her decision is.
What do we ask her? She's gonna.
If she's going to present her presentation today, she's allotted 10 minutes.
All there is. Something might come up and
It's
be all
up to
lopsided.
her.
As much as I want to, this is the whole point of having this meeting. And as much as I want to, I'm just afraid that at the next meeting, if he shows up, I'm not going to be given the opportunity to speak, and that's not a chance I'm willing to take.
I think the board is.
We don't know that. Your opinion.
I'm not taking the chance because at this point, and unfortunate as it is, I can't put a lot of trust in other things aside from my gut. So I'll wait another meeting, and I would hope that it's going to be on the next general board meeting, and I would hope that it's not going to be tabled again at that meeting.
June,
I would like to ask that you make an invitation to discussion if we go forward with this in the next meeting, because there's just too much conversation going on. We can't get past the agenda. Just too much.
well, in our bylaws, we don't have,
The president is allowed to limit discussion time.
It could be put on the agenda. If you put a specific time on the agenda, then it could be.
but that's not for board discussion. Board discussion is not, there are no limits to board discussion.
This is something that should be discussed at the executive meeting when we're creating the agenda, which by the way is on Wednesday.
That's fine.
So the executive meeting is on Wednesday.
At Absolute at 6:30.
I'll make a motion to postpone this item until the next general board.
I second it. Can that be done? Can we make a motion to that?
Just
I don't know.
Yes.
I'd like to have public comment on the postponement of this
We
item.
make a motion with her motion, why can't we make this motion?
Her
for
motion
that?
was to dismiss this.
Yeah.
We can't discuss it, we're not the public.
Okay, but we can't table that either.
Yes, we
Already
can.
tabled it once, twice.
Mr.
Yeah,
Johnson,
quickly to the motion, and I believe Mr. Travis seconded. I would put us add on to that at the executive committee meeting, the executive board create the structure that's clearly defined on the next agenda. Okay, even to the point of delegating a maybe hearing officer that will delegate the proceedings. Each side, the agenda states for the record that each side will be given 10 minutes. Each side is to prep their representative to state their point of view. And at that point, until the body have the structure is defined, it is clearly defined, and so that way, and you get this done at the beginning of the next meeting, it can take 30 minutes right off the bat and you're done. But do that, clearly define the ground rules, each side at a certain period of time, move forward, rebut, discuss them on the board, And once again, do this right, you can limit it, but if a board member does have a majority of support, it can continue discussion. It's called filibuster, okay? So, the clearly define the rules, get this over with, and to the point, it's fair to all sides here. I think the number one thing each board member needs to talk himself is that your personal feelings are secondary to maintaining the integrity of the work of the body. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson.
And also the person making the complaint has to go first on the presentation.
Okay, so what I hear is that we are going to send a personal email with the assistance of our vice president.
Are we gonna vote on the motion?
Yeah. We have to vote on the motion.
Okay, let's vote on the
You
motion.
gotta read the motion before we vote on it.
Motion to postpone until March.
What's the language? Motion
Motion to postpone
to postpone item 7
until the next general board meeting.
until,
So two-part motion.
until the next general board meeting.
And it's a two-part motion. Vice President to inform.
Just clarification, according to the bylaws, the correspondence secretary has a role of sending notifications, emails out to stakeholders. So, I'm just saying, if you wish, I will, but according to the bylaws, that role goes to the correspondence secretary.
That will be the court, and I fact-checked. So the motion's two-part for the corresponding secretary to send the petitioner a formal email notification so we have expeditions to prepare for the next board.
To send formal
I second that
notification
motion.
to the petitioner.
Yes.
Anthony, did you get all that? Okay, do we have a second to that motion?
I second it.
It was June.
You seconded it? I did. I did.
Motion to postpone item to the next general board meeting for corresponding secretary to send an email to petitioner.
Yeah, I seconded it. I beat you.
So Angela made the
Can you
motion.
spell it?
Mr.
Please
Johnson.
let me, and then,
Okay, with that, let's go ahead and take a vote to postpone item 7 to general meeting in March. Michelle?
Yes.
Yolanda? I'm sorry, Yoli? Anthony?
Yes.
Angela?
yes.
Mr. Chavez?
Yes, absolutely.
Marlene?
Abstain.
Troy?
Yes.
June?
Yes.
And myself? I can vote, right?
Yes, you can
Or I
vote.
can abstain.
Absolutely. Or you can go
I
no.
would say yes.
Ms. June.
I already asked.
Oh.
You said yes.
What time is it?
8:01, correct?
10 to 8.
So we just bring this down.
Okay, so with the motion.
I make a motion to adjourn.
Very good. All in favor, yea?
Hasta la vista, baby. Thank you, God. That was very good what you had to say. I really appreciate it.
But we don't have to-
How about me being
we
here?
don't
Give me a
have to
line.
take funds, that not to go through.
You made-
But it's okay.
I remember. You're on overtime right now. You're running on fumes. Mamma mia. So you're gonna
It's this one right here. Oh, here you go.